Chapter 22:12 Counterattack. Chapter 22:12 Counterattack. Why did the Nine Heavens Flame have such an ability? That was because Ling Han had split it out so that it had become one of his divided souls, giving it independence. Otherwise, if it was just a source power inside Ling Han's body, how could it possess such an ability? Thus, it might seem as if Ling Han splitting the source powers of heaven and earth out was weakening himself, yet it had allowed the Nine Heavens Flame to become stronger. This was also a kind of confidence for him. He had a firm belief in his own strength. Ultimately, external powers could not be depended on. Ling Han, are you still unaware of propriety? Huang shouted harshly. Ling Han ignored him. The Nine Heavens Flame was decoding the profound secrets within the inextinguishable burning flame. Once it succeeded, it would be able to easily absorb the might of the flames, unlike now, when it was only depending on the height of its essence to repress it. Furthermore, after decoding this kind of profound secrets of regulations, the Nine Heavens Flame would be able to possess a corresponding power of regulation, and that was a great strengthening factor for it. For Ling Han, this was a good thing as well. He could also observe and study it through the Nine Heavens Flame. You are too arrogant! Huang was furious. He was already surrounded by his inextinguishable burning flame, and Ling Han actually still dared to ignore him. What kind of disdain was this towards him? He charged over, and sent out a punch, flames soaring to the heavens. Ling Han, too, shot out a fist. Boom, the two fists collided, flames rose in all directions, and lava sprayed out. Huang roared, shooting out punch after punch, determined to suppress Ling Han. Ling Han countered carelessly. Huang was indeed very strong, but if he wanted to suppress Ling Han, he was being delusional. It might be difficult to decide who was stronger between Huang and the Rain Emperor, but there was absolutely no way he could be Ling Han's match. Ling Han did not make a harsh move, because he was very intrigued by the inextinguishable burning flame. Huang spoke of it so proudly, probably because this inextinguishable burning flame was not easily obtained. Thus, since it was here already, Ling Han would naturally prefer to slack off and take a shortcut. In essence, the Nine Heavens Flame was forcibly decoding the profound secrets of the inextinguishable burning flame. This speed was too slow, so Ling Han could only continue to exchange blows with Huang, unwilling to easily defeat this opponent. Of course, Huang was indeed strong, and Ling Han, too, would need to put some effort if he wanted to defeat him. Huang used all his powerful moves, celestial technique after celestial technique channeling from his hands, and boosted by the inextinguishable burning flame, his battle prowess was astonishingly strong. Even Ji Yutang would probably not last over 100 moves in front of him. This was a monster that had been nurtured in the Imperial Void sect. Ling Han mused ruefully that this was as expected of the Imperial Void Celestial King, who was the disciple of a heavenly Venerate and one of the strongest Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings. Even the disciple that he nurtured could be so strong. However, if Huang was already so strong, then what about Huang? This guy, could it be that he was a member of the Sealed Emotion Palace? It was very possible. There was no rule that determined that a disciple of a heavenly Venerate could not come and play around here. After all, if one were to be overly subjective and disregard the outside world, then even if he had the guidance of a heavenly Venerate, his accomplishments would still be limited. Cultivators should battle all the way until they became the strongest. Ling Han's thoughts wandered idly, and after who knew how long, the Nine Heavens Flame suddenly sent a message to him. It had already obtained all the secrets of the inextinguishable burning flame. Ling Han spread open his palm and looked, and the Nine Heavens Flame had turned into an ancient seal, but compared to before, this seal had another stroke to it. Though it was pitifully tiny, it did indeed exist. This was just like how a single petal had already bloomed on a flower, and now the tip of the second petal had slightly extended. Though it was still very far off from blooming fully, it was still a start, after all. Understanding dawned on Ling Han. When the flower's 9 petals had bloomed, the Nine Heavens Flame would have reached the 9th Heaven Celestial King tier, but this was the pinnacle because the apex number of heaven and earth was 9, and it could not be surpassed. As long as you were still living in this galaxy, you would have to adhere to the regulations of heaven and earth. Ling Han frowned. Then, how did an illegitimate child, like the heavenly venerable Tyr, came to be? Everyone was inferior to regulations, so how were they supposed to break through the regulations? Could he go to the foreign realm? When this thought arose, Ling Han shocked himself. To say nothing of how he was going to pass through the connection point of the two realms, even if he could, the regulations he cultivated would be absolutely useless in the foreign realm, and it might be that his strength would be even weaker than severing mundane Tyr. Then, wouldn't it be just treading on dangerous ground? How exactly could he leap out of the pond of this heaven and earth? Ling Han couldn't help but feel vexed, and a feeling of annoyance rose up in him. "Ha, do you now know fear?" Huang smirked coldly. He thought that Ling Han was frowning because he was afraid. Ling Han narrowed his eyes in a glare. "I'm currently irritated, so are you asking for a beating?" With his anger stoked, he immediately began a fierce counterattack. Boom, the nine heavens flame unfolded, instantly expelling the lava, and opening up space for Ling Han's movements. "What?" Huang mouthed this word, his face filled with disbelief. Even though a fifth severance could be considered monarch Tyr, and would definitely become a celestial king in the future, even when both were celestial kings, there wouldn't be a massive disparity in battle prowess. Why? Because every cultivation level that had been cultivated would affect the battle prowess of the celestial king, such as dividing 9 souls, or such as the mystery realms that he had formed when he had been in the Immortal Palace Tyr. Why did Huang look down on Ji Yutong and see him as trash? That was because how Ji Yutong had cultivated his mystery realm was trash in his eyes, and the gap between their battle prowess was also incredibly obvious. Monarch Tyrs would have to cultivate every single cultivation level to perfection. Otherwise, even a monarch Tyr could degrade to become an emperor Tyr or a king Tyr. So what if he was destined to become a celestial king? That would only be trash among celestial kings, or he would have long since been killed before that. Ling Han was unconcerned, and only sent out his fists in a mad barrage of punches. Once he could ignore the inextinguishable burning flame, Huang's battle prowess would have declined greatly, in relative terms, so how was he supposed to stop Ling Han's burst in attack? "Impossible!" Huang finally called out. He had not gained his inextinguishable burning flame with his own power, but it was rather the Imperial Void Celestial King that had moved personally, and helped him to suppress the murderous and destructive power within the flame, which allowed him to obtain it after studying it for 90 years. This kind of fierce flame could even match the might of a celestial king. The prerequisite was that he himself had already reached the celestial king Tyr. This was also the basis of his arrogance. How many people in the Immortal Palace Tyr could reach this kind of height? Yet he had only managed to trap Ling Han for a while, and then the latter suddenly showed his divine might, and unraveled the inextinguishable burning flame. How was he supposed to believe this? "There is nothing that is impossible. In my eyes you are only trash, so what would be all that difficult about defeating trash?" Ling Han asked calmly, flames exploding on his fist, and forming an ancient and majestic seal. Pun! 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 At first, Huang could have lasted about 100 moves before defeat, but because his willpower had weakened, and his fighting spirit had also declined greatly, how was he supposed to stand off against Ling Han like this? He was thrashed harshly, and yowled continuously in pain. In just over a dozen moves, Huang collapsed on the ground. The lava that covered the ground no longer bubbled and surged, having lost its source, and was quickly suppressed by the formation here, turning into nothing. Ling Han looked towards Jia, and this fiery woman couldn't help but take a step back, a powerful fear in her expression, as if she was worried that Ling Han would beat her up as well. "Go back and tell Jia Lan." Ling Han picked Huang up. "And you as well, go and tell Huang. If they want to pay me a visit as guests, I welcome them. But they need to show some sincerity, and not let minor characters like you two come and bother me. Scram!" With a toss, Huang was immediately thrown off a far distance away. Chapter 22:13 Huang moves. Chapter 22:13 Huang moves. When Chia saw this, she involuntarily shrunk back, and hurriedly turned and fled in a panic. Ha ha! Ling Han laughed, then sat down, and continued sipping his tea. Neither the Empress nor Hunyou took it to heart. Though both Jia Lan and Huang had already advanced into the Immortal Palace tier, and had the might of a Supreme Monarch tier, there was no possible way that Ling Han wasn't a match for them. But this was the Saintly Origin Academy, so it did have some rules. He was sure that the two of them would not dare bully them so brazenly. However, after only a while had passed, a gigantic spirit palm descended from the skies. The palm was as sparkling and translucent as jade, multiple seals incredibly brilliant, and was descending on an unmatchable course. Ling Han hurriedly grabbed the two women, and used void space, moving rapidly. Boom! The massive palm descended. Boom! The four abodes of Ling Han and his group were simultaneously turned into rubble. Wah! Ling Han also spat out blood continuously. Thankfully, he had hidden the two women behind him, and they had not suffered too much impact, unlike Ling Han, who had been touched by the shock wave created by the massive spirit palm. This was too astonishing. It had just been the shock wave, and actually possessed such might. An ascending origin tier elite had moved? This is a warning. No one can humiliate one of my Huang's people. A voice rang out calmly, bearing a boundless dominance. Huang. The person who had moved was actually Huang. He, too, was only a first secret as well. A Supreme Monarch tier was indeed powerful. Ling Han nodded internally. It was no wonder that Huang could stand equal with Ji Wuming. If he were to fight with Ji Wuming, who was superior by a cultivation level, there was no need to question the result. He would be dying very tragically. He hadn't even appeared, and merely sent a palm strike from afar, and it was enough to inflict light injury on Ling Han. If he had not reacted in time, he would even have been severely wounded. Furthermore, this person was extremely overbearing. This was Saintly Origin Academy, but Huang dared to make a move on Ling Han so brazenly, using his superiority to bully Ling Han, and completely ignoring the basic rules. This kind of arrogance was also a rarity. I will give you 3 days to come to our Huang Alliance and report, and become an odd jobs worker. Otherwise, the next thing I destroy would not be your abodes. Huang's voice rang out again. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink as forfeit, just asking for your own suffering. The voice ran out like thunder, with absolutely no reservations, as if even celestial kings were really below his notice. Ling Han's expression darkened. Huang's actions had exceeded his expectations. Why did this guy dare to be so arrogant? First secret? He asked menacingly. Just because he was a cultivation level higher than him, he could be so overbearing? Fuck, did he think that Ling Han would not break through as well? Huang, is it so fun to bully a rookie, someone whose cultivation level is lower like this? Another voice rang out calmly. Sure Chanzi, you dare interfere in my matters? Huang's voice raised a notch, his dominance blazing even hotter. This second person was actually Sure Chanzi of the 4 great Supreme Monarch tiers. It was no wonder that he could stand off against Huang. Hee. Sure Chanzi merely laughed calmly. I just can't bear to see it. If you want to fight, then I would not mind turning into a battle Buddha to spar with you. The winner of the last battle was not decided, so we should come to a conclusion this time. Huang declared boomingly. Come fight! Xiao, a bright golden figure suddenly soared into the skies, and another figure shot into the air in quick succession. Boom! Dazzling light burst on the horizon immediately. There was clearly an endless distance, yet they could still see it clearly. The 2 great Supreme Monarch tiers had already begun their battle. Ling Han was surprised. Why had Sure Chanzi stepped out for him? Could it be that he, too, wanted to recruit him? No one knew exactly who had won in the battle of Huang and Sure Chanzi, but Huang made no further mention of telling Ling Han to become an odd jobs worker in the Huang Alliance, which showed that he had not defeated Sure Chanzi, at least. However, Sure Chanzi actually paid no further regard to Ling Han as well, which was quite surprising for Ling Han. After waiting another 3 days, Ling Han decided to pay a visit to this Shichanzi, and see what kind of character he actually was. He went alone, and arrived in front of the abode that Shichanzi was residing in. The doors to Shichanzi's abode were wide open, and a good-natured-looking young man stood at the side of the doorway. When he saw Ling Han approach, he bowed slightly and said, "So young Master Han has arrived. Lord Buddha's son has waited a long time. Please enter." What did he have up his sleeve? Ling Han strode into the abode. This was a completely different world. It had used a secret technique of space. From the outside, it did not look very large, but it was not the slightest bit small on the inside. There were lotus flowers planted all around the abode. Some were ordinary, and there were also 5-leaf silver lotus, 9-leaf golden lotus, 18-leaf purple lotus, and so on. Fragrance wafted from the lotus flowers, spreading far. When he walked deeper into the abode, there was a pure white lotus in a lake. The flower was about 3 meters in size, and in the center, a bald monk was seated, dressed in golden Buddhist robes. Ling Han glanced at him, and suddenly felt as if his soul had been sucked out of his body, sinking into an indescribable darkness. He was shocked, and hurriedly guarded his spirit and heart, and only then did he manage to pull his soul back. Shichanzi, one of the 4 great supreme monarchs. This guy was really too extraordinary. "You would like to ask why I helped you?" Ling Han had not spoken yet, and the monk was the first to speak. Ling Han nodded and asked, "Why?" There was absolutely no relation between them, so how could there be such kindness without any reason? Shichanzi smiled slightly. "Can it be that I intervened because I saw an injustice?" Ling Han smiled as well, and said, "Though there is that possibility, I still think that there is a deeper reason." Shichanzi looked at Ling Han for a while, and then said, "That's right. Someone asked me to move and give you a hand." "Who?" Ling Han asked. "That person told me not to reveal their name, so I am sorry." Shichanzi bowed slightly. Ling Han was curious. Though there were many people that were willing to help him, who had so much weight that they could ask Shichanzi to move, he truly could not think of who it could be. As he thought this, he said, "No matter the case, I still have to thank you for your help." Shichanzi smiled and said, "However, helping you with this, I have indeed paid a heavy price." He did not avoid the issue, and pulled apart the front of his Buddhist robes, and there was a shocking palm print on his chest. "Huang's heaven and earth domineering fist has reached great accomplishment," he said as he pulled his Buddhist robes back. "This person comes from the sealed emotion palace, and is indeed not to be underestimated." The sealed emotion palace. Ling Han's heart shuddered, and a few of his doubts had instantly been resolved. Why was Hu Yan willing to listen to Huang's lead? That was because the Imperial Void sect itself was subordinate to the sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable. And why did Huang dare to be so arrogant? That was because a Heavenly Venerate was backing him up, and even the 9th Heaven Celestial Kings did not dare to interfere with his affairs overly much. Shichanzi dared to move, not because he was braver than the Celestial Kings, but because if it was he that interfered, there was no possibility it would cause a Heavenly Venerate to move in retaliation. In a battle of equals, to say nothing of a supreme existence like a Heavenly Venerate, even Celestial Kings would not be interfering. Otherwise, this kind of disciple would really be too weak, so what was the point of taking him as a disciple? "This is a time immemorial pill, which is slightly beneficial for healing wounds," Ling Han said. Then with a toss of his hand, he threw a pill bottle at Shichanzi. Shichanzi grabbed it, and couldn't help but be shocked. He exclaimed, "This is an excellent grade of healing pill among 3-star alchemical pills. I never thought you would actually possess such a treasure. It is actually a 7th refinement at that." This time, he was really stunned. Chapter 22:14 Who had helped? Chapter 22:14 Who had helped? 7th refinement was relatively rare even among 4-star grandmasters. However, for a 4-star grandmaster to concoct a 3-star alchemical pill, and had cast 7th refinement on it at that person was too idle, wasn't he? "I concocted it," Ling Han said smilingly. He had done him a huge favor, so he did not mind revealing some of his trump cards to the other party. Shichanzi was even more astonished. If Ling Han was only a 4-star Grand Master or even a 5-star alchemist would not have taken it to heart too much. After all, he was a supreme monarch tier, and would definitely be capable of becoming a 9th heaven celestial king in the future. In that case, was there any need for him to be concerned about a 5-star alchemist Grand Master? But Ling Han had another identity. He, too, was a supreme monarch tier that had attained dividing 9 souls. That was terrifying. The world actually had such a prodigy. Han Lin, I have underestimated you, Shichanzi stated calmly. Ling Han chuckled and asked, How is Huang's battle prowess? Very strong. Shichanzi looked solemn, and then smiled. However, he has also been blasted by my eternity tap, so his injuries are definitely not lighter than mine. This smile was filled with confidence and pride. It looked like this monk had not yet been freed from human desires and passions, and was still filled with ambition and competitiveness. Eternity tap? Ling Han suddenly recalled that when he had joined forces with Ji Wuming previously against Yulan Fenghua, Ji Wuming had used a secret technique that caused Yulan Fenghua's expression to change drastically, and he also exclaimed the words, Eternity tap. Could it be that Ji Wuming had some relation with Shichanzi? He was struck with a brain wave and said, It was Ji Wuming who asked you to help. He said these words with a tone of certainty. Shichanzi faltered slightly, and then smiled. I never thought you would have guessed it so quickly. Thoughts flew in Ling Han's mind. Ji Wuming was a reincarnated 9th heaven celestial king, but his identity before reincarnation had been guessed by Xu Yering and Tang Minglong, yet Ling Han did not have the slightest idea. This extremely violent and murderous guy, Ji Wuming, was actually a member of the Buddhist sect. Hold on, there were only a total of 3 9th heaven celestial kings that had emerged from the Buddhist sect, but 2 of them had been overseeing the Buddhist sect all this while, and only the founder of the Buddhist sect, the 9th heaven celestial king, was rumored to have vanished. However, no one knew if he had actually died, or was presently cultivating in seclusion somewhere. Now, he should be able to confirm. Ji Wuming was the reincarnation of the 9 Lights Ancient Buddha. No wonder. Now that the 9 Lights Ancient Buddha had spoken, Shichanzi would naturally do as he commanded. This was a command from his ancestor. With this time immemorial pill, the recovery time for my injuries would be sped up by about a month or so, estimated. Shichanzi laughed loudly. Then I will go and find Huang for another spar, and drive him crazy. Their strength was equal, and previously neither side had won. However much time Shichanzi needed to recover, Huang would probably need around the same amount of time. Yet now that Shichanzi had a 7th refinement time immemorial pill, his recovery time would be greatly expedited. When he sought out Huang for another battle, should the latter accept or refuse the challenge? If he accepted, he would definitely be defeated in battle. If he refused, Shichanzi would mock him. Ling Han couldn't help but smile as well. Huang had bullied him, and he was still unable to avenge himself at present, so he was glad to have Shichanzi use this kind of method to cause Huang some displeasure. Furthermore, there was also some of Ling Han's contribution to it, so it could be considered that he had avenged himself slightly. Ji Wuming was really an interesting character. He clearly would be able to match Huang himself, yet chose to delegate the task to Shichanzi. Was this deliberately done so that Ling Han would not have to be grateful to him? Ling Han shook his head. Ultimately, a great battle would break out between himself and Ji Wuming, and he had a feeling that if a new heavenly Venerate could emerge in this heaven and earth, then it would definitely be either himself or Ji Wuming. No matter how strong Shichanzi, Huang, and Jialan, whom he had not met, were, there was ultimately something they lacked, and Ling Han did not think that they could rise up above the rest. Ling Han took the chance to ask Shichanzi about some matters of the 9 Lights Ancient Buddha, but Shichanzi behaved with great propriety. He was very upfront with whatever he should say, but he did not spit out a single word about whatever he shouldn't. After a long while, Ling Han's understanding of the Nine Lights ancient Buddha was still stuck on the level of legends that were known to outsiders. He knew that Shichanzi would definitely not speak, and thus thanked him, and left the latter's abode. At present, 6 Supreme Monarch tiers had appeared in the academy, but there was no doubt that Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were the weakest. They had not yet crossed over into the Immortal Palace tier, and were completely unqualified to stand off against Ji Wuming and the others. I should go and break through to the Immortal Palace tier, Ling Han murmured. Like the Severing Mundane tier and Dividing Soul tier, breaking through to the Immortal Palace tier would also require going to a specific location, but what was different was that breaking through to the Heaven Soul, Earth Soul, Yin Soul, and Yan Soul would require going to different places for all of them, and breaking through to the Severing Mundane tier required going only once, and while Immortal Palace tier was the same like Dividing Soul tier, wherein one would have to go to an Immortal Palace tier mystery realm every time they broke through to the next cultivation level, they could repeatedly go to the same location to completely construct all 5 mystery realms. Thinking of this problem, Ling Han couldn't help but ask Small Tower, "Is there some cultivation level above 5th Secret of Immortal Palace tier, like 5th Severance or Dividing 9 Souls?" "Hee, and I thought you wouldn't ask." Small Tower laughed. It seemed like this guy was treating him with disdain again. Ling Han shook his head. "I knew that you would speak sharply. Did you think that you would hurt me with just a minor blow?" Small Tower did not speak flippantly again, and said, "The mystery realms in the human body are not just limited to the 5 organs, there is a 6th organ." Ling Han faltered, and then gaped slightly. "What you mean is that there is a total of 11 minor levels in this cultivation level?" Dividing Soul tier was already mad enough. One could only reach consummate level after cultivating 9 minor levels, but the Immortal Palace tier was even crazier as there was a total of 11. "If your maths was passable, that would be right." Small Tower did not forget to continue treating Ling Han with disdain. "However, there is no restriction of Immortal Palace tier mystery realms, like you would have to go here for this cultivation level, and go there for that cultivation level, and there is no time limit to the time they are opened." It paused, and then continued, "You have the 10,000 times acceleration effects of the Black Tower, so it would not be very difficult for you to cultivate all 11 mystery realms fully, in probably just several billion years." Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless. Several billion years? That was too long, wasn't it? Thankfully, the 10,000x acceleration effect of the Black Tower was indeed strong enough. After conversion, he would only need several tens of thousands of years in real time. Counting off on his fingers, if even Immortal Palace tier would need several tens of thousands of years, then how long would Ascending Origin tier take? And there was also the 9th Heaven Celestial King tier. How many years more would he need to be qualified to break through to the Heavenly Venerable tier? The invasion of the foreign realm was close at hand, or the heaven and earth would not have been so urgent either. Did he have that much time? Even so, there was no way that Ling Han would settle the matter just by cultivating 5 mystery realms. Only if he had cultivated every single cultivation level to perfection would he have hope of breaking through to the Heavenly Venerable tier. Even if he was slightly remiss, it would be imperfect. Otherwise, Ji Wuming would not have needed to reincarnate and cultivate again right from the beginning. "All right, I'll study first how the first mystery realm is to be built." Immortal Palace tier meant to construct mystery realms in one's own body, but how was a mystery realm to be constructed? They would have to go to a natural mystery realm and be enlightened, drawing on the power within to complete the construction. Hu Yan, for example, had drawn on the inextinguishable burning flame to refine his heart into the first mystery realm inside the human body. Ling Han's situation was more special. There were too many regulations that he had cultivated. Thus, he had to think about which mystery realm he should go to refine his own first mystery realm. Was every cultivation level the same or different? The best option is to use the regulations of time to temper. In that case, after building 5 mystery realms, your physique would also evolve into the greatest eternity immortal physique. Small Tower paused, and then continued. Then after refining the 6th organ, your physique would be improved further, Becoming the Greatest Eternity Everlasting Physique. Chapter 22:15 A Special Mystery Realm. Chapter 22:15 A Special Mystery Realm. Past, present, and future are eternity, while everlasting is superior to yin and yang, Small Tower said calmly. Refining the 11 mystery realms with regulations of time can allow transcendence of past and present, and linking to the future. Linghan sighed. I don't know the details, but this is very awesome in short, right? Of course. Small Tower declared proudly. Can Hu Neo and the others also construct 11 mystery realms? Linghan asked again. Yes, there is no rule that says a fourth severance cannot attain dividing 9 souls. However, without even attaining the fifth severance, wanting to attain dividing 9 souls would naturally be as difficult as ascending to the heavens, Small Tower said. There wasn't the slightest change in its tone, and this was also the reason why Linghan was unwilling to bicker with it. It was basically a dead person, so it wouldn't get angry at all. Then, would there still be hopes of becoming a heavenly Venerate? Linghan asked hopefully. Small Tower scoffed and said, Even if you can cultivate the fifth severance, dividing 9 souls, and 11 mystery realms to the pinnacle, whether you can or cannot become a heavenly Venerate will still depend on luck. Throughout the ages, there have been innumerable prodigies. Do you think that there were few people like you? There were indeed very few, but at least one would appear every epoch. Yet how many of them had actually successfully become heavenly Venerates? Linghan nodded. In this heaven and earth, even if there would be miracles due to the invasion of the foreign realm and rise of new prodigies, this number should only be 1. Throughout history, there has never been a previous case of 2 heavenly Venerates emerging in a single epoch. In fact, after a heavenly Venerate came to being, the next heavenly Venerate would only emerge after at least 10 epochs. Then, after leaping out of this heaven and earth, perhaps Wan Xing and Hu Neo may also be able to become heavenly Venerates, Linghan murmured to himself. Otherwise, even if they cultivated both dividing 9 souls and 11 mystery realms, it would still be useless. Perhaps, the cultivation surroundings of the foreign realm were more exceptional, and did not have such harsh demands that one had to be fully equipped with the fifth severance, dividing 9 souls, and 11 mystery realms to be able to break through to the heavenly venerable tier. This is a dangerous thought, Small Tower said solemnly. Though the Tower of 3 Realms is a heavenly venerable tier treasure that has surpassed regulations, it was still forged in this heaven and earth, and only would it be effective in this heaven and earth. In the simplest example, your present 10,000x acceleration effects would not be effective in the foreign realm. Very simple. A different heaven and earth meant different regulations. For the sake of strength, I have to make an attempt. Linghan's stand was very firm. Though the heaven and earth had broken their own rules, and allowed the Dragon's Gate mountain to descend ahead of time, the existence of heavenly venerable tier was unrecognized by the heaven and earth. If there was a gap, it should be impossible to advance into this cultivation level. Alright, let's just set this aside first. At present, the priority is to break through to the Immortal Palace tier. Linghan went out, and made some inquiries to find out which mystery realm would allow him to use the regulations of time to construct the mystery realms of the Immortal Palace tier. However, progress was extraordinarily rough. If he wanted to construct the mystery realm with regulations of fire, he could go to the Burning Mountain, Demonic Flames Valley, and the like. If he wanted to break through with regulations of lightning, he could go to the Divine Lightning Lake, Mad Cloud Swamp, and so on. But the regulations of time were the strongest regulations in the world, and could be invincible before Celestial King Tyr. It was not a problem of having few of this kind of mystery realm, but rather they did not exist at all. How stupid. Since I said that the mystery realms should be formed through the regulations of time, I naturally know this place, and you actually do not ask me. How dumb. Small Tower suddenly spoke up after Linghan's multiple failed inquiries. Linghan couldn't help but curse, and exclaimed, Would you have died if you had spoken earlier? Furthermore, since you said I should break through with the regulations of time, why did you not tell me the location at the same time? What would be about that then, right? Small Tower countered very shamelessly. All right. I won't drop myself to your level. Now tell me, where is that mystery realm? Ling Han asked. Under normal circumstances, you would never be able to find it for your whole life. Small Tower said. Time is the most mysterious regulation, and the heaven and earth would not permit anyone to touch it. Only celestial medicines can draw on this regulations, and be ingested by humans for comprehension. Then how can I enter into abnormal circumstances? Ling Han asked smilingly. You would need to concoct an alchemical pill that allows your soul to transmigrate through time, and only then would you be able to enter into that mystery realm. Small Tower replied. Ling Han was curious, and asked, It would be my spirit entering, but I am supposed to form my mystery realm inside my body. Would that be of any use? Of course. Small Tower scoffed, appearing disdainful. What you need is only the regulations, and regulations are formless. What does it have to do with your physical body? There was such a way too. Then what is the alchemical pill? Ling Han asked. You are not qualified to concoct it yet, because that needs an 8th refinement. Small Tower replied. 8th refinement. 9th refinement was the limit of spirit refinement, and only a 5-star Grandmaster could achieve that, and this alchemical pill actually needed 8th refinement to be effective. The requirements could be considered extraordinarily high. I am presently at 7th refinement, and 8th refinement. How long would that take? Ling Han couldn't be sure either. Grandmaster Ziqing could also be considered an extraordinary prodigy of alchemy, but even over tens of billions of years, he still had not attained 8th refinement. Then, I will try to achieve 8th refinement first. Ling Han entered into the Black Tower, and began burying himself in alchemy. In any case, there was a channel of business for all the alchemical pills he produced, so he could get new medicinal ingredients for another round of concoction, forming a positive cycle. It could not be denied that Lu Jun, having been accepted as a disciple in the Saintly Origin Academy, was indeed quite strong in alchemy. At least, in the concoction of 3-star alchemical pills, his success rate was as high as 50%, and that was with the basis of 4th refinement, which was extremely shocking. However, because of this, he had received a lot of criticism from Ling Han. Too stupid. Only a 50% success rate, you wasteful idiot. Ling Han couldn't help but kick him a few times again. Look here, the water and moon pill is concocted like this. Lu Jun was naturally defiant. He was indeed no match for Ling Han in battle, but in terms of alchemy, Ling Han was far from being a match for him, either. And he actually said that his 50% success rate was too low? Fuck, if even that was considered wasteful, what wouldn't be considered wasteful? 50% success rate, added with 4th refinement, what did that signify? With the money for one portion of ingredients, he could earn 30 times the profit. But as he saw how Ling Han proficiently started the fire and opened the cauldron, Lu Jun was immediately stunned. This bringer of calamity was actually an alchemist as well. Fuck! The more he watched, the more shocked he was. That was because Ling Han was actually really concocting the water and moon pill. This was a 3-star alchemical pill. These movements. Too proficient, too amazing, even he could not help but want to imitate his movements. Time passed unknowingly, and Ling Han smacked the cauldron. The pill had actually been completed. Only then did realization dawn on Lu Jun. As it turned out, he had been staring at Ling Han concocting an alchemical pill, and as long as 3 months had passed without his awareness. Just how focused had he been that he would overlook such a long time having passed? Perfection level. He also forgot whether he would be hit by Ling Han again. He ran over to check on the alchemical pill that had been concocted, and was stunned yet again, looking at Ling Han with a practically reverent gaze. You are too fuck awesome, aren't you? Ling Han gave him another kick. Don't be a hindrance here. He then began spirit refinement. 1st refinement, 2nd refinement, 3rd refinement. 7th refinement. Lu Jun's eyes were wide and bulging. This scene was really too full of impact. 7th refinement, he actually could achieve 7th refinement. When he knew Ling Han was a 3-star alchemist, he was already numb with shock, but Ling Han could actually achieve 7th refinement. What did that mean? He was a 4-star Grandmaster. Brother. Chapter 22:16 Thousand-Year Dream Pill. Chapter 22:16 Thousand-Year Dream Pill. Lu Jun almost fell to his knees. Even if Ling Han was a prodigy 10,000 times more freakish than Ji Wuming, Lu Jun would only shrug and say how awesome, and that was it. Yet now he wanted to worship Ling Han, and revere him as a god. Too strong. There was actually such an alchemy prodigy that overwhelmed him not just by a large amount, but was even completely qualified to become his master. He was an alchemy prodigy, and thus only even stronger alchemy prodigies could make him submit. Han, young Master Han! He looked up at Ling Han, his eyes filled with admiration. What, young master? Go and concoct more alchemical pills. If you still can't raise your success rate to 60% after I break through to 8th refinement, I'll beat you up. Ling Han glared at him. I'll definitely try my best, Lu Jun declared, clapping his chest, the respect in his eyes even more intense. 8th refinement. He was only at 4th refinement, and Ling Han was already beginning to break through to 8th refinement. A step further from 8th refinement would mean that Ling Han would advance to become a 5-star alchemist. Even in the Western Celestial Realm, there were not many 5-star alchemists. He was suddenly very motivated, and even had the idea of wanting to follow Ling Han's lead. This kind of prodigy saw really too rare. If he could follow him, not only would it be an honor, he would also gain innumerable benefits. Ling Han did not take it to heart. He also walked to the sidelines, and began his own pill concoction. Spirit refinement was unrelated to the grade of alchemical pill, so Ling Han chose a 1-star alchemical pill, and then proceeded to execute spirit refinement. It could be predicted that 8th refinement would result in failure after failure after failure. There would definitely be an innumerable amount of alchemical pills that would go to waste. Thus, wouldn't using higher-grade alchemical pills for spirit refinement be a great waste? Ling Han worked hard inside the Black Tower, and occasionally would come out as well, handling the alchemical pills that Lu Jun had concocted over to the Empress and the others so that they could take them to the pharmacy for sale in exchange for some monetary wealth. This was actually not enough for his extravagance, because his rate of spirit refinement was really too fast. Even if only 1-star alchemical pills were wasted, it couldn't hold up with his kind of speed. It could be imagined just how difficult it was to achieve 8th refinement, or even become a 5-star alchemist, when even a 4-star Grandmaster, a 7th refinement elite like himself would cause so much expenditure. Sometimes, it was not natural talent that was inadequate, but rather being embarrassingly short of money, and even great celestial king-tier forces could not put up with such waste. Thankfully, Ling Han had robbed Lu Jun of all his wealth previously, and added with his own considerable savings, it just barely managed to support his extravagance. If he really didn't have money, he would also concoct some 4-star alchemical pills to relieve some of the pressure. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed in the outside world. Lu Jun had already advanced successfully into 5th refinement with Ling Han's guidance, and had also successfully become a 4-star Grandmaster himself. In terms of time in the Black Tower, 1 million years had already passed, long exceeding the slavery period that Lu Jun had signed in his contract. But now that this guy had tasted the fruits of success, he made absolutely no mention of leaving, and merely concocted alchemical pills in silence. He could tell now. Ling Han had absolutely no thought of keeping his secrets to himself. As long as he seriously concocted alchemical pills, the former would give him some guidance. It was not that Ling Han treasured his talent, but rather treasured profit, and wanted to earn more. Lu Jun did not have the slightest disagreement about this. He, too, wanted to help Ling Han earn more, because this meant that his strength in alchemy would continue to improve. And after this 1 million years, Ling Han had finally touched the threshold of 8th refinement. How difficult! 1 million years have already passed, and I have just barely touched the threshold. Ling Han was very rueful. If these words were heard by Grandmaster Zi Qing, he would definitely slap Ling Han's face. It should be known how many years Grandmaster Zi Qing had been living for, and how long he had stagnated on the level of 7th refinement. Just how many millions and millions of years was that? It was more than hundreds of millions of years, yet still there was no sign of breakthrough at all. You just spent 1,000,000 years, and you were complaining? Furthermore, this was time inside the Black Tower. In the outside world, only 10 years had passed. 10 years! I have the confidence I will be able to succeed within 10 times. Ling Han's eyes shone brightly, filled with confidence. He continued to concoct alchemical pills once, twice, thrice, and by the 7th time, the alchemical pill in his hand did not explode, but instead the 8-fold golden vein pattern appeared. 8th refinement. Success! Ling Han faltered at first, and then burst out laughing. 1,000,000 years, just how long a period of time was that? He did not stop, but rather continued into spirit refinement, consolidating his strength. At the beginning, his success rate was naturally low, less than 10%, but it was soon raised to 20%, 30%, 50%, 70%, 90%. Yet still he could not attain 100% success rate, as if there was a mysterious power influencing his success rate in the heaven and earth, forbidding him from being so heaven-defying. Even the moon has its phases, and some things in the world cannot be perfect. Is that the logic? Ling Han mumbled to himself. 90% was quite sufficient. Small tower, the pill formula of that alchemical pill? Ling Han asked. Thankfully, Small Tower knew this pill recipe. Otherwise, if he had to go to some ancient site and try his luck, Ling Han would definitely go crazy. He began pill concoction. This was a 4-star alchemical pill, and the concoction process was extremely complicated. Even Ling Han was slightly dazed at the beginning, and after failing for at least a dozen times, he finally found some ideas, gained some experience, and then progressed slowly. Another several thousand years passed, and Ling Han had finally successfully concocted the first cauldron of alchemical pills. This is the 1,000-year dream pill, and it has never been seen on any alchemy scroll. Ling Han mumbled to himself, while his hand bore a radiant and vibrantly colorful pill that developed into the changes of age. It must reach perfection grade, and added with 8th refinement, to be able to open the corridor of time, send your soul inside the blending point of past, present, and future. That is where the time mystery realm is located. Small Tower said. Ling Han nodded, and continued concocting alchemical pills. Fortunately, not only was he a 4-star Grandmaster, he was also the Alchemy Emperor at that. After succeeding once, he would not fail any further. After every pill completion, the quality of the alchemical pill would be greatly improved. 1,000 years had passed, and the 1,000-year dream pill he had concocted finally reached perfect grade. He began spirit refinement. That was much easier to do. His success rate of 90% allowed him to concoct 5,000-year dream pills after failing once. One was for himself, one for the Empress, one for Hu Niu, one for the Rain Emperor, and the last was for bewitching Maiden Ro. She, too, was about to break through to the Immortal Palace tier. If she could construct 11 mystery realms, bewitching Maiden Ro might not be able to become a monarch tier, but it would definitely shrink down the distance she had separating her from a monarch tier. Coincidentally, the Rain Emperor had also cultivated dividing soul tier to consummate level, and could break through to the Immortal Palace tier. The 5 of them entered into the Black Tower. When breaking through to the Immortal Palace tier, it was naturally the safest to do so in the Black Tower. Otherwise, even if they stayed in their abode, it could still be destroyed. After one such experience, Ling Han naturally did not want to take any more risks. Speaking of Huang, all 5 of them were extremely furious and frustrated. When they broke through to the Immortal Palace tier, they would definitely beat up this bastard. The 5 of them simultaneously took out a 1,000-year dream pill, and then swallowed it. In only a short while, the alchemical pill took effect. This was a 4-star alchemical pill, and had great power. Without the slightest trouble, it swept all 5 of their spirits out of their minds. Then, with a tremble, they began to speed up in flight. With a thought from Ling Han, Xiao, the Black Tower opened slightly, and their spirits flew out. In the space inside the Black Tower, There was no way for them to transmigrate through the flow of time. When their spirits appeared, a few mighty figures in the academy immediately exclaimed in surprise. The flow of time had been disturbed. Chapter 22:17 Timestream. Chapter 22:17 Timestream. Time was the most mysterious power. Time could not be reversed. Even the most powerful person would not dare to trace back time and attempt to reverse the past, affecting the present and destabilizing the future. Yet now, the powerful figures discovered that someone had actually entered into the time stream and was actually going against the flow. They were all stunned, and then extended their divine sense to execute a search in the time stream. So, it is the spirits that have entered into the time stream. The effects of the 1,000-year dream pill. The past cannot be changed, as it would affect the present and the future. However, the 1,000-year dream pill has actually appeared again. This is a forbidden pill recipe. The heavens forbids it from appearing as it would incur jealousy from the heavens. It was lost long ago. The 5 of them. Have they gained the fortune of the heaven and earth? The powerful figures communicated with their divine senses for a while, and then withdrew their gazes. Even if they were all 9th heaven celestial kings, they could not go against the time stream. This was a taboo of heaven and earth, and even they could not accomplish that. Ling Han and his group went against the flow of the time stream. They saw the development of the universe and stars, but not very clearly. Everything flashed by too fast. However, their speed was still increasing, getting faster and faster, such that they couldn't even see any kind of scene, only the time endlessly falling back. When their speed had reached the pinnacle, past, present, and future had lost all meaning, and speed itself was also meaningless. Huang, they suddenly shifted from extreme speed to absolute stasis. Everything around them had become grotesque and variegated, filled with bright colors, yet impossible to describe at all. Was this the time mystery realm? As per what Small Tower had said, Ling Han began taking steps and walking. At present, he was only a spirit, and there was no such thing as form. He could manifest into any kind of form or shape he wished, but he had still taken his own form. Not only he, the Empress, bewitching Maiden Ro, and the Rain Emperor were all in their own forms, yet they all looked like masses of light, with a kind of vagueness about them. Huang was different. In one instant, she had become a drifting cloud, and in the next she had become a pig, a dog, and then would turn into Ling Han's form. She was having a lot of fun. They opened their mouths to speak, and it was direct communication through divine sense. No matter how far they were from each other, they could communicate their intent to another person instantly. "Continue onwards," Ling Han said. They walked, and only after a while, a raging great river appeared ahead of them. The river water was extremely strange. There were actually suns, moons, and stars floating in the water, and change of time was flowing. The time stream! They were all shocked. At first, the time stream was only a kind of analogy, but they did not think that there really was such an existence, now unfolding in front of their eyes. "Don't touch it," Ling Han warned. "Time cannot be reversed. We are in spirit form, and cannot disturb time, but even with the slightest touch, we will be assimilated by time, and will never be able to return to our physical bodies." These words had been spoken by Small Tower very seriously. The Rain Emperor and the others all nodded their heads. Even if Huang was slightly reluctant, she still expressed agreement with a pout. They went upstream of the time stream. In the river water, they could see events that had happened endless eons ago. However, they could not really decipher most of the events. The scenes were too scattered and fragmented, and there was not much use in doing so either. "What I want to know is how the karmic life Heavenly Venerable died. Additionally, the breakout of the storm of darkness 8 epochs ago." The time stream was organized in sequence. The closer they were to the source, the longer ago the events would have happened. The 5 of them traced the ages. Boom! All of a sudden, a wave emerged, surging towards the 5 of them. "Step aside!" Ling Han quickly moved, grabbing the 3 women simultaneously, and then rapidly retreated. The Rain Emperor's reaction speed was not slow at all, and he practically moved at the same time that Ling Han did. If you are even touched by the water of the time stream, an instant would be eternity. You would be lost in eternal time. This was the most mysterious and noblest power of the heaven and earth. Time could be traced back, but definitely could not be touched, as it would affect the present and change the future. 1 epoch. 2 epochs. 3 epochs. It was unknown how long they had walked for. In this passage of time, time itself was meaningless. There was no past or future here, only present. No matter where Ling Han and his group walked to, that would be the present. 8 epochs ago. They had finally walked to a crucial point, but they immediately looked disappointed. This stretch of the time stream was actually completely blurred, like water that had been disturbed. Why can't it be seen? Hu Niu asked curiously. Could it be that this period of history is too important, so the heaven and earth do not permit watching? Ling Han guessed. As it implicated a heavenly Venerate, it was naturally very important. Let's go. Perhaps we can see more clues ahead. They continued onwards, walking on the banks of the time stream. In the time stream, they saw a great many powerful figures that would shake the world in the future, one, like the 9 lights ancient Buddha and the Imperial Void Celestial King, which helped Ling Han to finally gain a further understanding of these mighty figures. Thus, they traced back endlessly like this, but there would be occasional lapses in time, burying some major events deeply. 10 epochs, 50 epochs, 100 epochs. The celestial realm was chillingly old. They had walked past 100 epochs, and still they had not reached the end. The time stream was still flowing vigorously. However, there were lapses of time everywhere, hiding who knew how many truths. 140 epochs. They had finally arrived at the end of the time stream. A grassy plain appeared ahead of them. There were blades of grass growing, but upon closer look, the grass would be wilting soon. Some grass seeds had fallen, and very soon new grass would be sprouting and growing, the cycle repeating itself. At first, Ling Han was unconcerned, but he was then stunned. The green grass was actually all celestial medicines. Just how long could celestial medicines be alive? If it was a celestial king to a great herb, even it living a whole epoch would not be anything strange. But in this place, as far as the eye could see, these celestial medicines had only lived a mere several breaths from birth to wilting. Just what kind of frightening flow of time was this? If we enter, would we also instantly age? The Empress could tell this, her heart wary. No. Ling Han shook his head. We have ingested the 1,000-year dream pill, and while the medicinal effects are active, there is no way anything will happen to us. They advanced, passing the time stream, and entering that grassy plain. As expected, they were protected by a mysterious power, and were not corroded by the power of time. The grassy plain was astonishingly huge. They walked, and quietly kept account of the time. Perhaps over 100 years had passed, but the grassy plain was still that same grassy plain. Turning their heads, they could see that the edge of the grassy plain was actually right behind them. In other words, they had walked for over 100 years, but in truth, they hadn't progressed the slightest bit forwards. In this place, time was a mess, coexisting with chaos and order. Huang! A terrifying power surged out, and a strong chill rose up in Ling Han and his group at the same time. It was as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Even their souls were instantly frozen. In the skies, an eye appeared. The bizarre thing was that this was just a slitted eye, with the white of the eye golden, while the pupil was silver. Indescribable seals flickered, as if it was interpreting the secrets of time. This slitted eye swept a look over Ling Han and his group. Huang, a divine sword fell out of the eye, blooming into countless cold blades that struck out at Ling Han and his group. Even a 9th heaven celestial king could not attack in the time stream. This would reverse the past and present, and change the future. Only a heavenly Venerate would not be affected by the regulations, and could do as they liked. This was actually a move from a heavenly Venerate. Chapter 22:18 Intervention of a Heavenly Venerate. Chapter 22:18 Intervention of a Heavenly Venerate. Heavens, it was a heavenly Venerate that was moving. To say nothing of the fact that Ling Han and his group were only mere dividing soul tears, even if they were ninth heaven celestial kings, what could they do? Would they be able to block this blow? What could they do? Just wait for death? In this plane, time was incredibly strange. It could be astonishingly rapid, but it could also be overwhelmingly slow, and even a heavenly Venerate would be affected. When this divine sword struck out, it looked to be shockingly fast, yet still streaked a boundless distance in the skies, and it had still not fallen. In this process, the seals on the divine sword were also dimming, as if it had experienced an endless period of time, and was about to be destroyed by age. Instantly, understanding dawned on Ling Han. This heavenly Venerate was not of the same time period as them. Originally, there was absolutely no way that they would have encountered each other, but who asked them to have entered into the time mystery realm, and this was what led to their encounter. Before the divine sword struck its target, it would disappear on its own because it could not overcome the power of time. However, Ling Han and his group were all astounded. Having delivered an attack that could mess up time for so long before finally disappearing, just what kind of great power was this? Heavenly Venerable Tyr had transcended regulations, and it was indeed no joke. If it were not for the fact that the heavenly Venerate could not surpass heaven and earth, the might of this strike would have been even stronger, being capable of ignoring time, and ultimately killing them. Yet why had this heavenly Venerate made a move on them without any notice? In the skies, that soul line narrowed slightly, a bloody scar appearing in the silvery white of the eye, yet it was silvery blood that dripped out. Even if a heavenly Venerate could move, being contrary to time, he ultimately would have to suffer a penalty from the heaven and earth. There were some rules that even a heavenly Venerate could not exceed, or he would still have to suffer a lash back. However, heavenly Venerable Tyr was too strong, so even the heaven and earth could not do anything to them. Otherwise, if it had been another person, even if it was a ninth heaven celestial king, they would probably have been completely eradicated. I have seen your vague figures downstream of the Timestream, and I cannot allow you to live. This slit I sent out a blurry message. It was really too far off, so the sound was vague and unclear. It should be that this heavenly Venerate just happened to enter into the Timestream at some point in history, and caught sight of Ling Han and his group passing by. Then, he used a great mystical power, saw some aspects of their future, and thought that it was possible that they would affect himself in the future. Thus, even if it meant moving contrary to time, using the past to kill the present, and even if he would suffer a backlash from heaven and earth, he still did it. Ling Han laughed loudly. This meant that there was definitely one among them that had become a heavenly Venerate, and only would this incite wariness from a heavenly Venerate. Otherwise, even if they had all become ninth heaven celestial kings, so what? They wouldn't even be worth a mention. However, this heavenly Venerate was really petty. Could it be that he could not allow others to be his equal? Moreover, since this heavenly Venerate had discovered the threat their group posed in history, why had he not moved in the present flow of time? Could it be that he had long since died? Impossible. If he had already died, then he would not have considered their group a threat. Could it be that this heavenly Venerable Tyr had moved despite the order of time, and had thus suffered a lash back from the heaven and earth? Then, after leaving, he would no longer keep this memory? Otherwise, it could not be explained. So what if time separates us? So what if I will have to endure the backlash of karma? If I want to kill someone, even the heavens cannot stop me. The slit eye sent out his divine sense. Boom! He exploded with an even more powerful aura, as if the heaven and earth itself would have to prostrate in front of him. The slit eye sent out a paw this time. It was black as ink, and pressed down on Ling Han and his group. This paw was entwined with boundless seals, and as it struck out, even this mystery realm that did not exist in the heaven and earth would tremble on the verge of collapse. Compared to the previous divine sword, the might of this attack had soared 100 times over. Boom! The black paw struck over, its speed extraordinarily fast. Even boundless time could not stop its might. Ling Han and his group wanted to flee, but no matter how fast their feet ran, their figures were completely motionless. In this heaven and earth, the flow of time was incredibly bizarre. Could it be that they would be dying here? Ling Han's heart was icy cold. To say nothing of the fact that they were only in spirit form now, even if they had physical bodies, and could hide inside the Black Tower, so what? When a heavenly Venerate moved, even the Tower of Three Realms could only flee. If it dared to stand off against the heavenly Venerate, it would definitely be destroyed. But was there really no solution? Shwa, right at this moment, a dim light streaked out, striking that paw, and forcibly sending it into retreat. Who had moved now that had actually blocked the strike of a heavenly Venerate? The slit-eye blinked slightly, and looked behind Ling Han and his group. Looking downstream of the Timestream, that dim light had come from downstream. So it is you! The slitted eye released a cold laugh. I have seen you in the Timestream, and after boundless years, you are no longer in existence. Ling Han and his group were all numb from hearing this. To be able to move in spite of time, that would have to be a heavenly Venerate, but would a heavenly Venerate die? Ling Han suddenly understood which heavenly Venerate would move at this moment, and would also have disappeared in history. The karmic life heavenly venerable. The master he had never met. The five of them all looked downstream of the Timestream, and saw a figure was striding over, feet stepping on the river waters. A black tower floated above his head, and there would be occasional streaks of golden light surging out, exuding an aura that would suppress the heavens and shake the ages. It was the Tower of Three Realms. Ling Han naturally recognized it, and was completely sure that this was the karmic life heavenly venerable. The karmic life heavenly venerable had entered here from a different shard of time, and discovered Ling Han. He had also discovered that he was his future disciple, and had thus moved resolutely when he had encountered danger. As it turned out, this little guy is your disciple from a different era. The slit-eye looked into the distance of the Timestream, and showed an expression of dawning realization. I really cannot afford to underestimate your line. To think that two heavenly Venerates would actually emerge. However, the future is not unchangeable. As long as I kill him here, then even the future would also be rewritten. Just try. The karmic life heavenly venerable had already walked to the source of the Timestream, and stood ahead of Ling Han. His tall, broad figure stood in front of Ling Han and his group, protecting them completely. He looked at the skies proudly. Jiuwu heavenly Venerate, do you dare battle me? See if I won't kill you, and turn you into history. How domineering, being so confident even faced with a heavenly Venerate. Ling Han stuck out his head slightly, surveying the karmic life heavenly venerable. He was an extremely handsome man, broad and tall in figure. He had thick black hair, each strand seemingly carved from beautiful jade, exuding a gentle luster. His face was also seemingly carved from jade, with clear-cut features and a smooth, bright complexion. The most astonishing was naturally his aura of dominating the whole world, recognizing no one else but himself. The slitted eye stared at the karmic life heavenly venerable for a while, and then involuntarily smirked coldly. You are already a dead man, so what need do I have to risk severe injury just to battle you? Moreover, if it actually stirs up time, who knows how it may change history, and it is possible that you may be granted a sliver of hope of survival. Hee, do you think I would be so stupid? Cowardly rat. Karmic life heavenly venerable merely mocked coldly. The slitted eye involuntarily widened slightly and said, However, you are right. I am determined to kill these juniors. Their future is filled with fog, and even I cannot distinguish it clearly. Without eradicating them, I would not be able to rest easy. He had no interest in battling the karmic life heavenly venerable, yet wanted to kill Ling Han and his group. Was it difficult? Not at all. If a heavenly Venerate wanted to kill someone, then even another heavenly Venerate would find it very difficult to protect them. Chapter 22:19 Important Decision. Chapter 22:19 Important Decision. The karmic life heavenly venerable laughed loudly. Jiuwu, just how many epochs has it been since you became a heavenly Venerate? And you are actually afraid of a few juniors? Humph, so what? The slit-eye scoffed. As long as they can possibly pose a threat to me, I will erase all of them. Too bad that memories would also be erased after leaving here. Otherwise, you could not possibly have become a heavenly Venerate either. Hearing this, realization dawned on Ling Han and his group. As it turned out, this Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate was even attempting to kill the karmic life Heavenly Venerable in the Timestream, but at the time, he had not succeeded, and once he left his place, all the relevant memories would disappear. Even a Heavenly Venerate would not be exempted. Otherwise, even if the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had heaven-defying good luck, he could not have possibly avoided being hunted down by a Heavenly Venerate in real time. Only after returning to this place would the memories that had disappeared recover, and Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate would recall that he had previously attempted to erase the younger karmic life Heavenly Venerable from history, changing his destiny. But the stronger a mighty figure was, the harder it was to change because there were too many implications. With this kind of power of heaven and earth and lashed back from karma, even a Heavenly Venerate would find it very difficult to succeed. For example, Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate now wanted to kill Ling Han and his group, yet it just so happened that the karmic life Heavenly Venerable came out to rescue them. This was a kind of power from karma. There is no absolutely determined future, so even if I wished to go against the will of heaven, what of it? The slit-eye trembled, and actually walked out of the distance, becoming a giant that was millions and millions of meters tall. He donned bright yellow robes, wearing a black imperial crown. There was only a single slit-eye on his forehead, exuding divine light, as if it could see through the past and future. He was standing right there, yet seemed like he did not exist at all, which was extremely mysterious. "With me here, you cannot kill anyone!" Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable declared proudly, and then shouted at Ling Han and his group. "Hurry up with your real business here!" Though Ling Han and his group very much wanted to watch the great battle of Heavenly Venerates, they also knew the danger of that. Only a shock wave from a single attack of a Heavenly Venerable Tyr would be able to kill them 10,000 times over. If they insisted on watching the battle, it would be equivalent to committing suicide. "I'll send you off!" The karmic life Heavenly Venerable moved, and a great power surged out. Instantly, the 5 of them were thrown out. They could see grass flying beneath their feet, and traveled a boundless distance in an instant. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate moved, wanting to stop Ling Han and his group. He had absolutely no intentions to exchange blows with the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. The latter had already died in history, yet he himself had lived till the present and future. If he battled with the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, it was possible that he would be severely injured or even die. What was the point then? The karmic life Heavenly Venerable laughed, and with a wave of his hands, Ling Han and his group sped up further. Then, he turned his head, and faced Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate directly. "Going against the era, it is destined that you cannot possibly succeed," he said. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate smirked coldly. "In front of me, there is nothing impossible. Even if there is great karma from the heaven and earth, so what? I have already surpassed regulations, and even the heaven and earth can do nothing against me." He moved aggressively, wanting to blast the karmic life Heavenly Venerable aside so he could hunt down Ling Han and his group. The karmic life Heavenly Venerable also had no intention of battling him to the death. Though he had seen how he would be dying in the future, he presently had endless attachments that he could not let go of, so how could he possibly risk dying to battle the Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate to the death? For those that had reached heights that they had, who was not the most outstanding prodigy of an era, so who would be weaker than the other? Since it was a matter of the future, it should be left to be resolved in the future. The goal of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable was very simple, and that was to save the lives of Ling Han and his group. The 2 great Heavenly Venerates battled fiercely. Even the slightest movement would produce an incredibly mighty power easily capable of killing a 9th heaven celestial king. Thankfully, Ling Han and his group had already been sent far away enough by the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Otherwise, even if they were in a place with such chaotic time like this, the attack of a Heavenly Venerate would still be able to penetrate time, and land a lethal blow on them. When the Heavenly Venerate power on them was fully expended, they stopped automatically. They saw that they had crossed over the grassy plain, and multiple crystalline pillars lay ahead of them. These pillars reflected their figures, yet their reflections moved differently. Some were going around in circles, some were seated in cultivation, and some were scratching their heads madly. "Is this an illusion?" Bewitching Maiden Ro asked. Ling Han thought, and then shook his head. "Since this is the time mystery realm, time itself is chaotic here. Perhaps what we see is a certain fragment of the future." And both the Empress and the Rain Emperor nodded. "It should be this place." Ling Han surveyed the surroundings. According to what Small Tower had said, this was the end of the time mystery realm, and plucking the power of time here would grant a chance of building a mystery realm of the human body, and advancing into the Immortal Palace tier. The 5 of them each found a position, and then sat down cross-legged, beginning to break through to Immortal Palace tier. This was similar to a scene that had appeared in the Crystal Pillars. Clearly, this place had already recorded a fragment of their future. The mystical power of time was indeed extraordinary. Ling Han's heart soared, making contact with the mystical power of time around him. There was the past, present, and future. Time had taken the form of shards, which was incredibly amazing. After so many years of settling, Ling Han had long since been equipped with the qualifications to break through to the Immortal Palace tier. Thus, when the mystical power of time came, strong enlightenment immediately rose up in his heart. Correspondingly, some mysterious change had also taken place in his body inside the Black Tower. It was exuding a brilliant light, dazzling and eye-catching. Ling Han hesitated slightly about which of the 5 organs he should cultivate. Heart first, then. He soon came to a decision. The heart was the leader of all 6 organs. When the heart was clear, so was the spirit. However, before breaking through to the Immortal Palace tier, there was one more thing he had to do. And that was to take all the divided souls back into his body for ordinary dividing soul tiers. That was 4 souls returning to 1, but for Ling Han, it was 9 divided souls combined into 1. Sensing that they were about to be fused again, the 9 divided souls all expressed defiance. They were not Ling Han's souls, but rather the 9 source powers of heaven and earth. Previously, they had existed in the form of a divided soul, which was equivalent to them having been granted an independent life. And now that Ling Han was about to take them back into his body, it would be equivalent to erasing their independence. They were naturally dissatisfied with this. However, they were a part of Ling Han that had been split off, and Ling Han was their master. There was no way that they could resist. Ling Han paused slightly. Then, gritting his teeth, he decided not to fuse the 9 source powers of heaven and earth. He already had the imprint of the source powers of heaven and earth in his body. Thus, even if he released the 9 source powers, it would not affect his future comprehension. However, his strength would definitely be greatly affected. For example, he definitely would no longer be able to use Great Clash of Source powers. But once Ling Han's decision was made, he did not hesitate any further. He had always believed firmly in his own strength. No matter how strong external factors were, there would ultimately be a limit, while his own strength was what truly had no limits. The 9 source powers had already given him extremely great help, so granting them freedom would also be showing thin respect and gratitude. That was the case. Ling Han's body in the Black Tower trembled, and the 9 divided souls all fell out of his body. He did not want any external objects, and wanted to advance into Immortal Palace tier with the purest self, breaking through to become the strongest. The 9 divided souls all expressed gratitude towards him. Throughout the ages, who could be so domineering and confident in themselves? Ling Han extracted the mystical power of time, and began to temper his heart so he could construct the first mystery realm of his body. Chapter 22:20 Finally becoming Immortal Palace tier. Chapter 22:20 Finally becoming Immortal Palace tier. Ling Han's spirit channeled, and a power was mysteriously manipulating it. The origin power in his body surged, and the regulations of time turned into flames that were tempering his heart. Though the source power of time had left his body, it had still left behind its own brand, which exuded a weak mystical power, and cooperating with the regulations of time that he touched, they were tempering his heart together. Ling Han's soul was playing the role of a bridge. On one side, it was the time mystery realm, and on the other, it was his physical body. In this mystery realm, time was meaningless. An instant could mean eternity, but eternity could also be an instant. In Ling Han's body, his heart was being refined by the regulations of time, progressing towards becoming a mystery realm. This would become a space of its own that could contain both items and people. It could also store up power, nourish precious tools, and when it had reached the pinnacle, it would develop into a world of its own. Ling Han suddenly had an enlightenment. It was no wonder that there were so many mystery realms in this world. Perhaps a considerable number of them were not naturally formed, but rather formed by Immortal Palace tier elites. His first mystery realm was taking form, and his small realm was also increasing frighteningly. It was unknown how long had passed, and the first mystery realm, the heart, was finally formed fully. Boom! Ling Han's body trembled violently, and a majestic power was surging, about to gush out. Xiao, his spirit suddenly moved, and was madly retreating the way it had come from. The effects of the 1,000-year dream pill had ended. Air! Ling Han released a moan, and suddenly snapped his eyes open. He felt like he was drenched in sweat, his whole person almost about to collapse. Having his soul being forcibly plucked from his physical body was not something to play around with. Woo! The Rain Emperor and the others also awoke at the same time. They were all holding their heads, appearing to be in incredible discomfort. Ling Han's eyes swept over them, and he couldn't help but shake his head, looking disappointed. Not one of the Rain Emperor and the others had actually broken through to the Immortal Palace tier. True, this was not something that could be accomplished in one go. Ling Han, you've broken through? Huang exclaimed with great delight. She could see the terrifying wave of power from Ling Han's body. It had far surpassed the level of the dividing soul tier. Ling Han nodded and replied, Yes, I have. Haha, it is still fourth brother that is the most outstanding. The Rain Emperor nodded, not withholding his praise for Ling Han. The 5 of them had started together, yet only one of them had broken through. Wasn't the problem clear here? The Empress, Huang, and bewitching Maiden Ro did not feel the slightest envy. As they saw it, they wanted nothing more than for Ling Han to immediately become a heavenly Venerate. What did we experience inside? The bewitching Maiden Ro suddenly asked, a questioning expression on her face. Ling Han and the others were the same as well. Vaguely, they could feel that they seemed to have experienced some major event inside the time mystery realm, but no matter how hard they tried, they could not recall it now. It seemed like there was some kind of mysterious power that had forcibly erased their memories. Just what in the world happened? They scrambled their brains, but their gains were limited. They vaguely remembered that they seemed to have been advancing along the mighty river. That was the flow of time, showing the past, present, and future. But now that they thought about it, they could not recall the slightest detail. Then, it was a plain where time was chaotic, followed by a valley, where there were multiple crystals of time that developed into past and future. There should be something else in this, but they could not recall it no matter what. Forget it, let's not consider this problem now. Ling Han stopped confusing himself with thoughts about this matter. I will go to endure the heavenly tribulation first, and then I will concoct the 1,000-year dream pill again. He exited the Black Tower, and dark, stormy clouds instantly assailed him. Lightning flashed within, astonishingly terrifying. In a few steps, Ling Han had already left the Saintly Origin Academy, and arrived in an uninhabited desolate forest, greeting the heavenly tribulation. With a tremor of his figure, 9 figures instantly stumbled out of his body. I have already severed my connections with you. From now onwards you are all independent entities, Ling Han said. These 9 figures were the manifestations of the 9 source powers of heaven and earth. Greetings, Master! All 9 of them bowed down at the same time. Ling Han leaped up. As he greeted the oncoming heavenly tribulation, he asked, Why do you address me as Master? You have a generous heart. You obviously could have enslaved us, yet did not do so. We are grateful for this. Secondly, you have lofty ambitions, and have astonishing good fortune. We will also be willing to follow by your side, and seek better future prospects for ourselves," the 9 of them said. At first, source powers of heaven and earth would only have weak intelligence, and only through changes over time would they be able to develop a perfect intelligence. However, after they had fused with Ling Han, they would also be affected by Ling Han, allowing the awakening of their intelligence to speed up countless times over. And now, they truly possessed actual intelligence, no different from any other person. Ling Han thought for a moment, and then said, "All right. The invasion from the foreign realm is close at hand. I need enough strong people to assist me so that we can join forces to stand against the invasion of the foreign realm. You are all manifested from the source powers of heaven and earth. Once your intelligence has been awakened, your rate of cultivation will be incredibly shocking." "Yes, Master," the 9 of them answered in unison again. Ling Han was practically dealing with the heavenly tribulation absent-mindedly. His battle prowess had long since reached the pinnacle of the 4th secret. Even if the heavenly tribulation he was presently enduring had also surpassed the height of 1st secret, it was only about the level of 2nd secret, at most. How could it threaten him? Thus, as he carelessly parried the heavenly tribulation, he conversed with the 9 of them. "Do you have names?" If he called them something like 9 Heaven's Flame, that wasn't the name of a person at all. "Not yet. Please grant us names, Master," the 9 of them said. Ling Han nodded and then said, 9 Heaven's Flame, you will be called Ling Hua. Xianin Source Water, you will be called Ling Shui. Fiery Flame Lightning Strike Wood, your name is Ling Mu." He absolutely did not have the slightest bit of creativity in naming, yet the 9 of them were completely unconcerned. Elites had never announced how strong they were through their names, but rather through genuine strength. The lowest accomplishment of source powers of heaven and earth was the celestial king tier, and all of them had awakened intelligence. That was even more incredible. To say nothing of 9th heaven's celestial king tier, at least 8th heaven's celestial king tier would not be too difficult. Half a day later, the heavenly tribulation dispersed. Ling Han's figure descended and said, "Come, let's return." He was filled with irritation and anger. Now that he had advanced into the Immortal Palace tier, the first thing he was going to do is to seek Huang out for a fight. The 10 people returned to the academy. Ling Hua and the others passed through the gates of the academy as Ling Han's followers. However, after they entered into the academy, they heard that Huang had left 8 years ago. Not just Huang, but even Ji Wuming, Jiao Lan, and Shi Chanzi have also left? Ling Han murmured. It seemed like he had missed something these years. "Han Lin, come with me." An ascending origin tier elite appeared. He was a teacher of the academy, and beckoned Ling Han over. Ling Han nodded, and walked over. Then he asked, "Dare I ask, my lord, has something happened? I am not sure of the details myself." "This is a command from Lord Eternity," that ascending origin tier elite answered. "Lord Eternity?" That would have to be the Eternity's Celestial King. Ling Han naturally knew who the Eternity's Celestial King was. He couldn't help but feel surprised that he would actually be summoned by a 9th Heaven Celestial King. Led by that ascending origin tier, he arrived at a small courtyard. After he pushed the doors open and entered, that ascending origin tier elite closed the doors behind him, and did not come in with him. "Come, sit." This small courtyard had not used any secret technique of space. Thus, this really was a small courtyard. There was a man in white robes seated in the courtyard, his back facing Ling Han. He was presently brewing tea, and there were 9 streaks of colored light entwined around him. A 9th Heaven Celestial King! Chapter 22-21 Front Lines. Chapter 22-21 Front Lines. Ling Han took a few steps forwards, and then bowed to pay his respects, saying, "Greetings, Eternity Celestial King! No need for excessive politeness." The Eternity Celestial King turned around, but all Ling Han could see was an empty void. It was as if this person did not even exist in this plane of existence, which was incredibly bizarre. When the Eternity Celestial King saw this, he merely smiled calmly, and said, "This is only a sliver of thought that I have left in this place. My real self is still at the connecting point of the 2 realms, embroiled in battle with the foreign realm. He paused, and then continued. You do not have to ask too many questions, you merely have to listen to me speak. At present, a situation has arisen in the connecting point of the two realms. A neutral zone has actually appeared, and whether it is our celestial realm or the foreign realm, we are unable to draw on the regulations of heaven and earth there. We can only use the power and regulations that are stored up in our bodies in battle. Now, this neutral zone still has restrictions on cultivation level. Only those in ascending origin tier and below may pass through. Those of the celestial king tier can only stand outside and watch. Some days ago, the foreign realm provoked us, asking for a battle between the younger generation of both sides. Us old folks gave it some thought, and thought that we should also allow the youths of this generation to train themselves, and be aware of how strong and fearful the foreign realm can be. Thus, we agreed. Your ways are quite impressive, and we haven't found you in these few days. Never mind, every person has their own secrets, and I have no intentions of pursuing the matter either. Since you have come out of seclusion, and have also broken through to the Immortal Palace tier at that, then go there and make your own contributions on behalf of our celestial realm. If Ling Han had not known about the storm of darkness previously, he would definitely have been completely puzzled. Yet now that he was clear about what the Eternity Celestial King was talking about, he also knew that a change had taken place in the war between the two realms. A neutral zone had actually appeared at the connecting point. If this zone widened continuously, and could allow even stronger people to enter, wouldn't the celestial realm be in trouble? Ling Han thus thought, and quickly replied. This junior is willing to do what I can for the celestial realm. All right, go on then. The Eternity Celestial King waved him off. Your identity letter can open the transfer formation. At present, the only transfer formation is near the connecting point of the two realms. Looks like you already know about the storm of darkness. Yes, I do. Ling Han replied, bowing. The Eternity Celestial King nodded, and took a second look at Ling Han. Brat, you are really quite determined to actually surrender 9 source powers of heaven and earth. If it had been myself of the past, would I have had that kind of courage? His expression was slightly dazed. Clearly, he could not decide at this moment. It should be known that celestial kings were incredibly resolute, yet now he was actually hesitating, which showed how Ling Han willing to give up the 9 source powers of heaven and earth was such a great decisive feat. Ha ha! The Eternity Celestial King suddenly laughed loudly, his eyes shining brightly. The fact that I would hesitate so long is already clearly telling of the problem. Young man, I am very optimistic about you. Come to the connecting point of the two realms. I want to see you with my own eyes, help you quickly raise your cultivation level, and who knows, you may create the future. Go on. Ling Han bowed respectfully, and then retreated out of the house. He thought for a moment. In any case, the Rain Emperor and the others would be advancing to the Time Mystery Realm in spirit form, so it could be done anywhere. Hence, he did not return, and just brought Linghua and the others towards the transference portal. After showing their identity letters, the 11 of them entered into the transfer formation. A mysterious and majestic power surged over them, and they arrived in a new location. This was a desolate plain, and there were corpses everywhere. However, their shapes were strange, and they were burning in flames. Ling Han looked closely. Those were not the regulations of fire, but rather Tao flames. When a person died, their Tao would be extinguished, but there were some beings that were too strong, and even though their spirits had died, their bodies were still present. However, the heaven and earth would not allow beings that were too strong to remain in the world, and would use the Tao flames of heaven and earth to burn the corpses of these elites completely. That was the case now. The heaven and earth was refining the remains of such elites. These are the corpses of elites of the foreign realm. Beside the transfer formation, an elder was seated. His face was completely covered with wrinkles, and was average-looking. He did not show the slightest sign of a powerful aura. Ling Han glanced at him, yet a boundless chill rose up suddenly within him. He felt that this elder could easily turn him into nothing with just a mere thought. Young man, your destination is the stronghold at the end of the desolate plain, the elder said. We have built a stronghold at the border of the celestial realm, and laid down a super great formation to resist the invasion of the foreign realm. However, occasionally, some strong beings would still be able to sneak over, and this desolate plain has become a second battlefield. Ling Han could only nod in response. This elder had to be a celestial king, and probably a higher-level celestial king at that. Otherwise, he would not have been qualified to stand guard here. He would have been easily killed. He surveyed the surroundings curiously. This was the second battlefield in the war between the celestial realm and foreign realm, and it was also the last line of defense. If the foreign realm's invasion reached this place, they would be able to penetrate deep and enter into the vast celestial realm. Clearly, this line of defense was not as firm as a mountain, because the internal area of the celestial realm had already been corroded by the foreign realm by a great portion. This was also understandable, as it would be difficult to stay on defense constantly. Senior, we juniors will take our leave then. Ling Han clasped his hands towards the elder in farewell. Then, he strode forwards, and began the transmigration to the desolate plains. After they stepped into the desolate plains, Ling Han immediately discovered a terrifying aura surging towards them. It turned into ugly evil spirits, wanting to corrode his soul. His spirit did not waver, and he merely strode forwards. Since that elder allowed him to pass, it meant that there was definitely no danger here. As expected, these evil spirits only came towards him, yet could not take a step further. It was as if there was an invisible barrier that was protecting Ling Han. Ling Hua and the others were the same as well. They were all manifested from the source powers of heaven and earth, and had experienced who knew how many changes through the ages, so it was natural that they could not possibly be easily scared. There were corpses scattered all around the desolate plain. Because this was far behind the front lines of the celestial realm, it was natural that the corpses of elites from the celestial realm could not be seen here. They definitely had to have been dealt with properly. The remains here were all from the elites of the foreign realm, and they were basically divided into two categories. One type was human form, yet had the hooves of a bull as their feet, horns growing from their foreheads, and a tail at their bottoms. The other type was the form of insects, with 6 legs, double wings, and there were even inverted spikes on their legs, exuding a cold light. These two forms were both very familiar. Ling Han had previously seen the so-called deity on the island, and their image was a human with horns and a tail. Furthermore, in a mystery realm, he had also seen the severed limb of a heavenly Venerate from the foreign realm, and it was an insect leg that had inverted spikes. He had a guess in mind, and that was that this human form with horns and a tail was the corresponding humans of the foreign realm, while the insect forms should be corresponding to wild beasts. They were indeed two completely different worlds. Ling Han mused ruefully as he strode forwards. There was no danger in the desolate plains. Though there were many corpses of elites from the foreign realm, they were being burnt by the Tao flames of heaven and earth, and no longer had their vicious might. They could not possibly pose any further threat to Ling Han and the others. However, it was incredibly hard to walk here, such that even their foreheads had broken out in sweat, and every step further was a challenge. After about 3 months, a majestic, great city finally appeared ahead of them. The cities in the celestial realm were all as huge as planets, and this one was one of the most well-known. Its colossal size was indescribable, and it was entirely afloat in the air, with multiple streaks of starlight descending, appearing extremely magnificent. This was the first line of confrontation between the foreign realm and the celestial realm. Chapter 22:22 Treated with disdain. Chapter 22:22 Treated with disdain. This was no ordinary city, but rather a stronghold. Formation patterns covered the walls of the city, exuding a powerful air of danger that was supreme, as if it was a 9th heaven celestial king. No. It was not like 1, but 10, or even tens of them working together to stand guard here, which was extremely frightening. Ling Han nodded internally. If that wasn't the case, how could they possibly stand guard against the mad barrage of assaults from the foreign realm? This was a stronghold. There were no gates of entry on either side, which Ling Han was slightly stunned by. He had no idea what he should do. Right at this moment, a man strode towards him. He wore only a piece of animal hide on him, his figure broad, wide, and sturdy. There was actually a star on his shoulder. Though it was only the size of a fist, it was emanating a fiercely powerful aura. "Where have you come from?" this man asked. He looked to be in his 30s, and the parts of his body that were not covered by the animal hide were covered with scars. Ling Han was slightly surprised. That was because this man's cultivation level was the Immortal Palace tier, and had even reached the extent of Third Secret. For Celestials, even if they were missing limbs, their injuries would recover in an instant. How could so many scars be left behind? There was only one reason, and that was the martial intent of the foreign realm was left in these scars, and this affected his recovery. This was a stronghold, standing off against the front lines of the foreign realm. Clearly, the injuries he had were left behind by the cultivators of the foreign realm. Ling Han felt great respect to those in the stronghold. They were fighting bravely at the front lines, but to say nothing of gaining the gratitude of others, there were not many people in the celestial realm that were even aware of their existence. Yet now, this person's attitude displeased Ling Han slightly. This was a kind of interrogating question that carried disdain. Ling Han suppressed his displeasure. On the basis that the other man had bled and fought for the celestial realm, he answered calmly. "Saintly Origin Academy." "Saintly Origin Academy?" The middle-aged man faltered slightly, and then revealed a disdainful expression, saying, "The students of Saintly Origin Academy have arrived 8 years ago. Though there were some that arrived later, it would not have passed the limit of 2 years. He peered at Ling Han, and the disdain at his lips became even more pronounced. "You must be a coward, coming only after dragging it out so long. You must have some powerful figure backing you up, right? However, forced by the circumstances, you had to come whether you were willing to or otherwise." Ling Han was slightly surprised. This guy really had a good imagination. How did he manage to come with such a deduction? He smiled calmly and said, "I have come to report here as commanded by the Eternity Celestial King, so it would be best to let me enter the city first." "Humph, how do I know that you aren't a member of the foreign realm here in disguise?" this middle-aged man demanded coldly, a cold smirk on his face. "Are you purposely causing trouble here?" Ling Hu demanded loudly. He was manifested from the source power of flames, so his temper was also extraordinarily explosive. He was the first that lost his patience. The middle-aged man glanced at him, and scoffed. "Do you think that just any random character would be qualified to enter into the Clear Heaven Pass?" Right, in his eyes, Ling Han and his group had all become random characters. He felt that Ling Han and his group had come too late, so they had to be cowards fearing death, so it was natural that he felt a great disdain towards them. "When we were bleeding for the celestial realm, what were you people doing?" The middle-aged man surveyed Ling Han and his group arrogantly. "Your lives were exchanged with the lives of the many generations of our ancestors. And you actually dare act unreasonable with me? And shout at me? Who do you people think you are?" By the look of things, it seemed like he wanted nothing more than to spit all over their faces. Finally, Ling Han understood. This guy was actually feeling unbalanced. Judging by his words, he had been in this stronghold since birth, and had never seen the prosperity of the celestial realm. Originally, it was nothing too major. He had grown up in a world of violence and danger, and had long since become accustomed to bloodshed. However, when large masses of students from the Saintly Origin Academy came here, poor kids, like them, who had grown up in the stronghold, found out that there was actually a colorful world outside of this place. Some of them would be defiant, and their unbalanced psyche would naturally be expected. Indeed, they could not understand. Why was it that generations of them had to stand guard here in this harsh place, bleed, and cry, and might have to make funeral arrangements for their companions every day? With this kind of psychology, when this middle-aged man discovered that Ling Han and the others were cowards, his negative feelings naturally burst out completely. Now that he understood this, Ling Han felt slight pity for this guy, and thus did not get angry. Instead, he pressed a hand on Ling Hua's shoulder and said, "Hee, we also hope to do what we can for the celestial realm. So please make arrangements for our entry into the city." "Our?" The middle-aged man scoffed. "Sorry, the Clear Heaven Pass does not welcome cowards. I know that people like you who have come here merely want to gain some experience and military credit, but you all have come to the wrong place." Ling Han's expression darkened slightly. "Don't just throw insults as you please. There was a reason why we have come late, and even celestial kings have not reprimanded us. What right do you have to blabber nonsense like this here?" "Humph, so you've shown your true colors now?" The middle-aged man sneered. "Because I hit the nail on the head, you are now shamed into anger. Don't use whatever celestial king to intimidate me. I fight bravely here, and am not even afraid of the people from the foreign realm. How could you possibly scare me?" Ling Han didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This man went down a dead end too easily. After he was sure that they were cowards, he insisted firmly that this was the truth. He shook his head and said, "If you continue to blabber nonsense like this, I won't be polite." "Ha, you actually want to fight me?" The middle-aged man sneered. "How would delicate flowers that had been cultivated in a greenhouse like you know the cruelties of war? I have been battling the foreign realm every single day, polishing my own battle prowess. Even if our cultivation levels were the same, I would still be able to suppress all of you single-handedly." He smirked coldly. The auras emitting from Ling Han and his group were only at first secret, their cultivation level being far lower and weaker than his. "Get out of the Clear Heaven Pass. This is not the place for you to come and act recklessly." He moved aggressively. Boom, multiple vein patterns immediately appeared on his right hand, humming loudly as he grabbed out at Ling Han. Ling Han was slightly surprised because while this man was clearly not a king tier, the attack he delivered was close to the standards of a king tier. This was very inconceivable. Could it be that the daily contact with death would transform one completely? Ling Hua roared furiously. He hadn't been able to hold himself back in the first place, and had not exploded only because Ling Han was subduing him. Now, seeing the middle-aged man attack, he was naturally the first to rush out and greet the oncoming attack with a punch of his own. Boom! His whole person had turned into flames. The nine heavens flame was naturally overbearing. Pun! The two of them exchanged a blow, and at the same time, their figures trembled. The shock wave created from the impact point reverberated boundlessly. The middle-aged man's expression inadvertently changed drastically as he asked, "Monarch tier?" The other was a first secret, yet could manage to tie with a third secret like him. If he was not a monarch tier, how could he accomplish this? Yet, the disdain in his expression was even more pronounced. A great monarch tier was actually such a coward. What a humiliation. "So what if you are a monarch tier? In this Clear Heaven Pass, even a monarch tier would have to crawl." He moved aggressively, and with a tremor of his hands, multiple veins popped, turning into strong dragons, boosting his battle prowess endlessly. "Go down!" He sent out his fist in a punch that moved to suppress Ling Hua. Chapter 22-23 Conflict. Chapter 22-23 Conflict. Ling Hua smiled proudly. He was no ordinary monarch tier, but manifested from the source power of heaven and earth, and possessed a sliver of celestial king tier might. In other words, before the celestial king tier, he would be stronger than a typical monarch tier, and could be considered a top-grade monarch tier. However, compared with freaks like Ling Han and Ji Wuming, he was still slightly inferior. What right did a king tier have to act arrogant in front of him? Even if he was 2 minor levels higher, it would still be useless. He also raised his fists to greet the oncoming attack from the middle-aged man, and what he was using was shockingly the fists of fury. The 9 great source powers of heaven and earth had initially been fused with Ling Han, so they naturally possessed all the celestial techniques that Ling Han had grasped. Of course, now that they had been separated and gained their independence, all the ultimate techniques that Ling Han comprehended and cultivated in the future would have no relation to them any longer. Fists of fury blasted out, their might shaking the heavens. The middle-aged man instantly fell into a disadvantage. In the first place, he was no match for Linghua, what more now when the latter had used the fists of fury. Pun! Over a dozen moves later, a punch landed on his left shoulder. He stumbled backwards continuously, and when he turned his head to look, he saw that there was a charred print of a fist left on his shoulder, which was still emanating the aroma of barbecued meat. The middle-aged man was both furious and shocked. Suddenly, he pointed at Clear Heaven Pass in the skies, mumbling something under his breath. Whatever he was muttering could not be discerned at all, right until the end when he shouted loudly. A streak of silvery light shot out of Clear Heaven Pass, and shone on him. Boom! His aura suddenly soared rapidly, as if it had been strengthened several times in an instant. Suppress! He shot out, and battled fiercely with Linghua once more. Boom! 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 The power of regulation resonated, forming a brilliant light of Tao that was incredibly intense. What shocked Linghan and the others was that this guy actually managed to fight Linghua to a tie. This powerful stronghold could actually increase the power of cultivators. Linghan couldn't help but recall the deity that was worshipped by the force of darkness. Wasn't it also a statue, yet could grant a power boost of around 10 times to one's battle prowess? This was extremely amazing. Linghua's temper was also ignited with the battle. His body took the form of fiery flames, capable of melting all other regulations. He was a source power of heaven and earth, so it would be strange if his battle prowess was not strong. After the fierce battle continued for about half a day, the middle-aged man's aura suddenly trembled, and became incredibly unstable. Then, it declined rapidly, and his battle prowess also fell drastically as well, as if the power boost granted to him by Clear Heaven Pass had already been exhausted. Linghua took the opportunity to attack fiercely. Pun pun pun, the middle-aged man was sent back into continuous retreat. Li Hongfei, you drew on the power of Clear Heaven Pass, and actually did not manage to defeat a first secret cultivator? Another man walked out, similarly dressed in animal hide, appearing incredibly gruff and coarse. The middle-aged man from before wiped the trace of blood at the corner of his lips, and his fighting spirit became even more uplifted instead of reducing. He humphed and declared, "Deng Li, don't interfere in my affairs." The man that came later smirked coldly, and retorted, "You can only use the power of Clear Heaven Pass once a month, yet have wasted it here. It is already displeasing to Lord Nye, who has especially commanded that I come to take a look." He paused, and then continued, "Weren't you asked to investigate the identities of these people? Why have you gotten into battle with them?" Li Hongfei humphed, and replied, "These people claim that they come from the Saintly Origin Academy." Saintly Origin Academy? Deng Li's eyes swept over Linghan and the others, and similarly looked disdainful. "Is that the academy that was co-founded by the Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings?" "Humph, they have so many resources at their disposal, but they are all such trash. If these resources had been used on us, we would have been able to advance into the ascending origin tier," Li Hongfei declared, nodding. "Let me ask you. Since you are the disciples of Saintly Origin Academy, why have you come so late?" Deng Li shouted this question at Linghan and his group. Linghan shook his head, and replied, "You two are merely guides. What right do you have to interrogate us? Just answer whatever question you are asked. Spare the nonsense." Deng Li exclaimed impatiently. Just like Li Hongfei, he was filled with envy and disdain towards Linghan and those who had grown up in a safe, peaceful environment. Linghan chuckled. "Initially, I have been quite respectful of you guys, but you are so determined to ruin these affections. Now I can't be bothered to waste words on you. I will give you 2 options. First, invite us into the city, or second, I will capture both of you, and then you can bring us into the city. Which do you choose?" "Hee hee, you are trying to overwhelm us with numbers?" Deng Li smirked coldly. "You are truly naive. This is Clear Heaven Pass, and we have multiplied who knows how many generations here, and you are trying to compare with us in numbers?" He took out a bull's horn, but it was entirely golden. Then, he put it to his mouth and spoke a few words into it. In a short while, multiple streaks of light surged beneath the great city, revealing one person after another. There were men and women. Some men were dressed very simply, that was in a piece of animal hide. Some men's attire was no different with the others of the celestial realm embroidered robes, which looked very luxurious. But the women's attire were all completely long skirts and beautifully made up. They had all carefully matched their attire. Deng Li smiled proudly and declared, "In terms of numbers, we have more." As he spoke, these people had already walked to stand next to Deng Li and Li Hongfei. There were a total of 17 of them, and added with Deng Li and Li Hongfei, they totaled 19. Though their manner of dress differed, as they stood there, they were all exuding an aura akin to primitive beasts. This was an aura that could only be formed after experiencing countless battles. It was also through this aura that they could be distinguished as the natives of Clear Heaven Pass. Ling Han stated calmly, "We have come to the Clear Heaven Pass under command of a Clear Heaven Pass, so why must you cause trouble for us? Having beaten up one of us, you say it is us causing the trouble?" A native immediately jumped out. Though he was dressed in embroidered robes, it could not conceal the primitive air he exuded. He appeared incredibly irritable. "We have bled and sacrificed for the celestial realm. We are not here to suffer your insults and humiliation." This accusation was too severe. Ling Han shook his head and retorted, "Just to sentence us with crime, there is no lack of words. Come on then. Since you guys love to fight so much, come, all of you together. I will then beat you into submission." "Impudence!" Li Hongfei and the others cried out in rebuke. Ling Han smiled. "Wasn't it a fight you wanted? Why do you have to be so reserved? No need to waste words on them. We'll capture them and beat them up first, take them a notch down," Deng Li declared impatiently. "Right, beat them up first, then talk," one woman said aggressively. All 19 of them looked keen and eager. The eyes they directed at Ling Han made it seem like they were fierce wolves that had spotted a rabbit. Ling Han turned to Ling Hua and the others and said, "The rest of you step down first." "Master!" Ling Hua and the rest exclaimed in defiance. They too wanted a battle, but should Ling Han move, they would definitely have no opportunity for a fight. Ling Han chucked. "It's all right. In the future there will be more than enough battles for you. Now we don't have the time to waste on a few minor characters." "What did you say?" When Li Hongfei and the others heard Ling Han's words, they all looked furious. He actually dared to call them minor characters? Though they weren't the most outstanding generation of Clear Heaven Pass, all of them had come from great clans, and their status could be considered lofty and noble, and now they were actually looked down on as minor characters, which naturally pissed them off. "We'll capture him first." "That's right. He seems to be the leader of these cowards. To defeat the enemy, the chief must be captured first, and it would also be more fulfilling to beat up the leader." The 19 of them moved at the same time, wanting to use their united power to capture Ling Han in a single stroke. Chapter 22-24 Gained Respect. Chapter 22-24 Gained Respect. The 19 of them moved at the same time. Though their cultivation levels varied, the weakest was at second secret, and the majority were at third secrets. With so many of them attacking at the same time, their might was naturally world-shaking. However, Ling Hua and the others merely crossed their arms over their chests, appearing to be completely unconcerned. They had watched Ling Han in battle many times, and suppressing third secret king tiers was naturally child's play for him. Now that Ling Han had further advanced to the first secret, even a fifth secret king tier could just barely match him. However, Li Hongfei and the others were unaware that Ling Han was that strong. When they saw that Ling Han was indeed going to confront elites like them alone, they couldn't help but smirk coldly. He bit off more than he could chew. Boom! Multiple giant hands descended, as if multiple stars were falling down, which was incredibly terrifying. Ling Han smiled slightly, and casually swept out his hand. Pun pun pun. He had instantly sent all 19 of them flying backwards, all of them throwing up blood madly. And this was still because he had held back. Otherwise he would have been able to insta-kill all 19 of them. Li Hongfei and his group all paled in shock. He was only a mere first secret, yet could actually defeat all 19 of them in an instant. What kind of concept was that? Monarch tier? Even a monarch tier could only be invincible against an opponent superior by 2 levels, which was equivalent to a third secret king tier, but there were as many as 10 such elites among them, so no matter what, they shouldn't have been defeated by Ling Han in a single blow. Above monarch tier, Li Hongfei said shakily, even his body was trembling. Such an existence was called Monarch Star in the Clear Heaven Pass, placed high above as if they were in the 9th heaven, and other monarch tiers could only look up at them. Monarch Star! Deng Li also exclaimed, his expression filled with disbelief. This coward in their eyes was actually a monarch star, a supreme overlord that would definitely become a 9th heaven celestial king in future. They exchanged looks, and then all yielded, falling to one knee. Greetings, my lord. The people of Clear Heaven Pass were all incredibly realistic. Monarch stars would definitely become 9th heaven celestial kings. This was the strongest power of the Clear Heaven Pass, and was also the rock main pillar that stood against the foreign realm, and would be nurtured with great focus. Thus, Deng Li and the others immediately knelt and conceded. Ling Han faltered as well. He had seen many different types of people, but he had not seen many that were like them. He nodded and said, "Rise." Only then did Li Hongfei and the others stand up. One of them said, "Please come into the pass, my lord." They set out together, but did not fly to that stronghold in the skies. Instead, they arrived at the area beneath the stronghold, and Ling Han saw that there were formation patterns carved on the ground. It was clear that they had been there a long time, and some traces were already modeled. They stood on the formation patterns, and after Deng Li used the horn to say a few words, a light surged over, wrapping around them. When the light flashed again, they had already appeared in the great city in the skies. Clear Heaven Pass dominated the path that the foreign realm had to take in their invasion. It was incredibly majestic, and when they appeared inside it, they could immediately feel a militaristic air of bloodshed and an ancient air of age that assaulted their senses. Even a person with the weakest character would be influenced by this atmosphere when they came here, and proceed to show a stronger side of themselves. "Please come with us." Li Hongfei and the others continued to lead the way, bringing Ling Han and his group onwards. In other places of the celestial realm, every city was as huge as a planet. Thus, there were actually mountains and rivers here, which was then followed by scattered towns. But in this place, there were no mountains or bodies of water. It was all structures that were constructed from stones, filled with a primitive air. Occasionally, they could see the corpses of elites of the foreign realm. They had been suppressed in the formation, and their power was being extracted and supplied for the whole defense system of the great city. They traveled for slightly less than half a day's time before finally arriving in front of a stone military camp. Then, Li Hongfei brought Ling Han and his group in to meet with the person in charge here. That was a man with a single eye. A piece of black cloth covered his left eye, and his black hair hung over his shoulders. His upper body was bared, muscles bulging as if they were built from mountain rock. An ascending origin tier, Ling Han thought. He had cultivated the heaven-deceiving technique, and thus was the most sensitive to auras. However, because the gap in their cultivation levels was too wide, he could not judge the other's exact cultivation level. "New disciples from the Saintly Origin Academy?" this one-eyed man said. "Yes." Ling Han nodded, then turned around, and pointed at Ling Hua and the others. "They are my followers." The one-eyed man was slightly surprised because he could sense how strong Ling Hua and the others were. Instead, it was Ling Han that seemed very ordinary. This naturally was because of the heaven-deceiving technique. He was not overly curious, though, and said, "You have been recruited under my leadership. We are 17th Camp of Unit D, and I am your senior officer. My name is Nye Hashan. Settle down first, and I will slowly assign missions to you." Ling Han nodded and said, "My lord, we will beg our leave first then." They walked out of Nye Hashan's stone house, and Li Hongfei approached them again. "My lord, let me arrange accommodations for you." "Tell me about the recent situation," Ling Han asked. "Yes." Li Hongfei began to talk about the major events that had happened in these few years. Just as the Eternity Celestial King had said, the foreign realm had issued a written war challenge to the Celestial realm, wanting to hold matches for the younger generation. However, in these years, it had only been severing mundane tier and dividing soul tier prodigies that were battling, and had not yet been raised to the level of the Immortal Palace tier. Judging by the present situation, the Celestial Realm's side was in extremely terrible circumstances. That was because the younger generation of the Celestial Realm had fought a total of 17 battles, yet had lost every single one of them. The prodigies of the Celestial Realm were too strong. From severing mundane tier to dividing 7 souls, there were supreme monarch tiers in each level. Especially in the dividing soul tier, where there was no shortage of dividing 5 souls, dividing 6 souls, or even dividing 7 souls elites. Though it was possible that they could never attain dividing 9 souls, their strength was much greater than that of dividing 4 souls monarch tiers. This was an absolutely one-sided suppression. And it was also because of these repeated losses that the Celestial Realm did not dare to easily agree to starting an Immortal Palace tier competition with the foreign realm. Why? That was because while the Celestial Realm had such monarch stars like Ji Wuming and Jialan, the cultivation levels of these 4 great monarch stars were too low. As long as the foreign realm had such monarch stars, they only had to attain 2nd secret or 3rd secret, and they would be able to suppress Ji Wuming and the others. Hence, they did not dare agree to another match with the foreign realm, fearing that it would result in a complete loss again. If that was the case, the morale of the cultivators of the Celestial Realm would drop to rock bottom. The Celestial Realm would definitely go to war again with the foreign realm, and boost their military morale, which was already very low, but it was definitely not now. At least, it would have to wait until Ji Wuming and the others reached the 5th secret. Thus, in the recent times, the monarch tiers had all been sent into the most dangerous locations, cultivating amidst bloody battles to increase their cultivation level as soon as possible. Of course, the cultivation resources they obtained were also exceedingly high in amount. All kinds of natural treasures were poured on them. This was also one of the reasons for why Li Hongfei and the others hated Ling Han. They felt that those like him had been rewarded without any efforts, and this was unfair for the citizens of Clear Heaven Pass. On the other side, the connecting point between the 2 realms had become more and more stable. Perhaps, after another while, even heavenly venerable tier power would be able to pass. By then, it would not be minor skirmishes like this, but a full-out war. Hence, the present generation had to mature as quickly as possible. After Ling Han settled down, he immediately entered into the Black Tower to concoct alchemical pills so that the Empress and the others could break through to the Immortal Palace tier as soon as possible. Only a day had passed in the outside world, and Ling Han had concocted enough 1,000-year dream pills, which would be sufficient for them to enter the time mystery realm a few more times. Chapter 22-25, Neutral Zone. Chapter 22-25, Neutral Zone. Ling Han cultivated inside the Black Tower, and the Empress and the others continued to ingest the 1,000-year dream pills and attempt to break through to the Immortal Palace tier. There was no concept of time inside the time mystery realm, and the Black Tower had 10,000 times acceleration effects. Hence, only a single day had passed in the outside world, but the Empress and the others could attempt to break through to the Immortal Palace tier several times. The prerequisite was that there were enough 1,000-year dream pills. 3 days later, Huang was the first to break through, and the Empress also broke through in quick succession a while after her. Then, another day passed, and the Rain Emperor had also successfully broken through to the Immortal Palace. The Rain Emperor had been slower because a dividing 9 souls breaking through to the Immortal Palace tier was clearly more difficult. Another 2 days later, Bewitching Maiden Ro finally broke through to the Immortal Palace tier. And at this time, Nie Hashan had also issued a command. The 17th camp would be mobilizing fully, and entering into the neutral zone for practice. In this neutral zone, the regulations of the 2 realms had clashed fiercely, ripping apart the earth, and turning the world upside down. Regulations had turned into shards, and a great many monsters had also come into existence. They did not belong to the celestial realm, nor the foreign realm, and were independent of the world. The Rain Emperor and the others also reported, and had all been taken into the 17th camp of Unit D, led by Nyehashan. In this camp, aside from the outstanding students of Saintly Origin Academy, there was also the younger generation of natives of Clear Heaven Pass, and they had formed a group. There were many other such groups, and their goal was to improve everyone's cultivation level as quickly as possible through the cruelties of battle. There were a total of 214 people in the 17th camp, and 10 to 12 people would make up a small team, and every team would have a team leader. Because Ling Han and his group had come late, they were split apart and distributed among these 20 teams, so they were not together. Though they had requested to be placed together, Nyehashan had not agreed, so they could only settle for this arrangement temporarily. With Nyehashan leading, they exited the Clear Heaven Pass, and entered into that neutral zone. After walking for half a day, Nyehashan had the 20 team leaders lead their teams and move freely. The team leader of Ling Han's team was Xin Chao, a native of Clear Heaven Pass. His cultivation level had reached the 5th secret Immortal Palace tier, and he was a monarch tier at that, which was very extraordinary. Though Clear Heaven Pass looked barren and inhospitable, with poor conditions, the military and harsh environment had produced countless prodigies, and Xin Chao was only one of them. He could not be considered one of the highest tier of prodigies. Like Li Hongfei and the others, Xin Chao did not particularly have positive feelings towards disciples of Saintly Origin Academy. The gaze he swept over them carried a powerful disdain, and he treated the 5 disciples of Saintly Origin Academy and his team with great contempt. "Young Master Han!" The 4 other students of Saintly Origin Academy naturally recognized Ling Han, and greeted him respectively. The 4 of them were all at the Dividing Soul tier, and it just so happened that there was one at Heaven's Soul, Earth's Soul, Yin's Soul, and Yang's Soul, respectively. They should have been deliberately arranged in this manner. Ling Han nodded, and surveyed his surroundings. They had already entered into a valley. One side of the valley wall had a crack that was as wide as 9 meters, and if he gazed within, its depths were unfathomable, and he could not see the bottom at all. And if he released his divine sense within, it would be like a mud bull sinking into the ocean, instantly disappearing. This space had been warped and destroyed, and it was no ordinary void either, but rather one formed through the collision of 2 words. No one knew exactly what the situation was inside. Perhaps only a celestial king could enter and explore, but this place was suppressed by the heaven and earth of the 2 realms. Even an ascending origin tier could not enter, and it was even more impossible for a celestial king. If they barged in forcefully, it would only cause themselves to shatter. This zone had not appeared a very long time ago. What Ling Han and his group were to do was, firstly, to train themselves, and secondly, to draw out a map of this place. In the future, this would be the great battlefield in the war between the 2 realms, and they had to get a clear grasp of the situation here. Of course, someone had to have already investigated the situation here, and confirmed the level of danger here. Otherwise, they would not have been allowed to recklessly enter this place. Xin Chao split the team into 4 groups, with 2 to 3 people in each group. Then, he had them move separately to observe the terrain, and draw the map. There were a total of 3 people in Ling Han's small group. Aside from him, the other 2 were both students of the Saintly Origin Academy. One was called Lu Jin, and the other was called Mei Hua, and they were Yin's Soul and Earth's Soul, respectively, so it was natural that they looked to him for leadership. They had been delegated to the western parts of the valley. The environment here was utterly terrible and the path very craggy and rugged, covered with sharp rocks that were like blades, and were capable of easily piercing through the soles of their feet. Because there were no regulations of the celestial realm here, they naturally were not able to fly. It was not impossible for them to fly by force, but it would expend the regulations locked within their bodies. But who knew what kind of dangers there were in this place? Once the regulations were exhausted, their strength would be dropping to the Genesis tier. Yet Ling Han did not have such reservations, because he had the Black Tower. Even if the Black Tower was a heavenly Venerate precious treasure, it could not form regulations either. However, it could absorb a great amount of regulations and accumulate them, and the volume far surpassed the amount that could be locked within Ling Han's own body if it had to be compared. That would be equivalent to the amount that one or even several ninth heaven celestial kings could store up. This meant that Ling Han could use regulations without reservations. No matter how much an immortal palace used regulations, how long would they have to use regulations to be able to exhaust the ninth heaven celestial king? It was practically impossible. He naturally would not be bringing up this kind of thing. This was his trump card. In the future, if anyone wanted to fight him one after another in hopes of exhausting his energy, that would be basically pointless effort. Instead, it would allow him to find weaknesses and gain victory. They all used regulations to safeguard themselves, so their bodies were slightly afloat to avoid being wounded by the sharp rocks, and this was not too exhausting of the regulations either. Huang, a strange creature, suddenly appeared. Its upper body was human, but its lower body was like a fierce tiger. Its whole body exuded a crystalline luster, was capable of absorbing light, and had a powerful ability of invisibility. Thus, Ling Han and his group were all slightly taken off guard when it appeared. It pounced towards Ling Han and the others, its hands flourishing. Boom! It created a powerful wave. It wasn't that there were no regulations in this place, just that the regulations here could not be used by the cultivators of the two realms. However, the creatures that were born here were not limited by this restriction. As it launched its attack, there were many afterimages. Lu Jin exclaimed lightly, and took the initiative to greet the incoming blow. Pun pun pun. They were immediately fighting intensely. At first, Ling Han was unconcerned as this creature's battle prowess was only around Earth Soul, but he soon became intrigued because the regulations that this creature used were extremely strange. They did not belong to the celestial realm, but were not part of the foreign realm, either. After the two worlds had collided, two types of regulations also clashed, creating a great change. In other words, this was a small world that was independent of both the celestial realm and the foreign realm. However, the overall level of regulations here was too low, and had suppressed the cultivation levels of the beings here. For example, only immortal palesters could enter this space, which meant that the upper limit of the regulations here was also the immortal palester. However, this world had just been formed, and the regulations still had a great space for growth. Its limits could still be further raised, and perhaps could reach the level of ascending origin tier, or even celestial king tier. Interesting, Ling Han thought, and an idea came to him. If he could comprehend the regulations here, then wouldn't it mean that he would also be able to comprehend the regulations of the foreign realm after he went there? This place was formed by the collision of two realms, and that was the same for regulations as well. It had the regulations of the celestial realm as well as the regulations of the foreign realm. If Ling Han couldn't even comprehend the regulations here, how would he be able to comprehend the regulations of the foreign realm then? You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.